Good afternoon, America, and welcome to another installment of the podcast. I am, as always, your host, Ian Davis. Glad to hear that you all are excited to be here. Today we have a rather sad topic to talk about, though, to halt the excitement. Today we're going to be talking about the problems of suicide in Japan and why their numbers are so high in comparison to the rest of the world. So, in my opinion, there are four main causes of this. The culture, you know what I mean. The mental health problem that it's very undercoverage, and the financial problems, and the isolationism of these people in Japan. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into it. So isolationism. So this is a big part of Japan's identity and culture. This is a huge problem for me when it comes to these suicide problems. So Japan is socially failing. In the BBC article, it's often called by most people the sexless city. There's not a lot of face-to-face contact. Young men have often forgot what it feels like for a real woman, to be touched by a real woman, to be in the presence of a real woman, and this is a huge problem. 20% of young men surveyed, so they have no interest in sex or anything to do with that, And this is a huge problem for mental health of men, and I feel as if this is why the young man in Japan, in the age range of 20 to 44, the leading killer of this demographic is suicide, and I just feel like this is the main reason of that. They're not having a social life. They're not doing those things that they see on TV that everybody wants to do in real life. You know what I mean? And when you have things such as hikikomori, which is a practice done in Japan where you pretty much lock yourself in your room and you don't leave, and you're isolated in there, and there's actually 700,000 participants of this in Japan logged. This is also stated in a BBC article. This is okay for them to do, just lock themselves away, and they have all they need because of technology. They have all they need in that room. They can order food. They don't have to leave their house. They can have their significant other on these solicit sites, and it was stated in my non-scholarly article that Japan's pornography is among the most active in the world. There's a lot more of that going on. So men just don't feel the need to leave their house. And they don't get human contact. And when they do, they get huge amounts of anxiety. But they can't open up and talk about this, which this kind of leads us into the next point, which is the culture of Japan. The overall culture. And when I say that, I'm not saying that women aren't affected by this, but of course they are. But I just feel like this hits the men harder, and the numbers show that the men are hit harder by this because it's harder on men, And the culture of Japan, this stems all the way back to the ancient times, and we actually touched on this in my class at Georgia College, taught by Professor Ikamoto. We learned about ancient warriors in Japan, and they would commit suicide if they lost a battle which dishonored their last name. They would literally kill themselves before they dishonored their name. Like it was more important for you to honor your name and be stoic than to live. So this goes all the way back to ancient times. It's just in their culture in Japan. Suicide is just a part of it, and there's no Christianity ever, so it's never really seen as like a sin to commit suicide. They often saw it as taking responsibility. If you dishonored any your last name or the culture, that was taking responsibility, was committing suicide. So I feel like the culture it kind of just keeps going through the generations. It doesn't just stop. And then for young people, this is boys, men and women. For young people, it's a very rule-oriented place, and they have to fit in a very small box when it comes to how they look, how they perform at school, how they talk, how they carry themselves, how they live life. It's very straight edge, straightforward, and that could be hard on kids. It could put a lot of pressure on kids, I feel. And when you pair that with isolationism and not being able to talk to friends, and just being on technology all day, it can lead to very, very bad mental health problems. And speaking of mental health problems, you're not allowed to talk about your mental health problems in Japan as a young adult. They don't allow you to talk about depression. They don't look at depression as something that a lot of people are affected by. You're not allowed to talk about anxiety. They don't want to hear it. They don't care. You're supposed to just be hard-edged, just emotionless. Like you're not allowed to show emotion. They don't have anybody to talk to about these normal teenage and young adult feelings that we all feel. And here in the States, it's a big deal about depression and all these types of things, because at the end of the day, it is a big deal. Mental health is not something to be taken lightly. And I feel as if Japan is a key example of this. You don't allow people to take their mental health serious, and it doesn't lead to good things. You know what I mean? And it's a really sad situation, but it stems from the culture, And yeah, so this also can go into the next thing, financial problems. Everywhere has financial problems, everywhere has their issues, but it's all about the way you go about fixing these problems. So, and this part of it affects the elderly people in Japan as well, because, you have older people who can no longer work, and, they're retired, and they find themselves, running out of money, and now they're in debt, or they had debt from their younger life that they just never paid off, and they can't make the money anymore. So, this hits a lot of older people hard. They see their only way out is to commit suicide, to get away from these debts that are hanging over them that they can't pay, and this is what affects the older people. And then, you got the younger people. There's a lot of precarious employment in Japan. So younger people, they're not really getting opportunities for long-term jobs and long-term ways to make money. It's all very short-term, just quick cash, you know what I mean? And this leads to a lot of young people having financial stress later in life, which we're going to let that lead us right into our commercial break. And after, we will talk about, some more problems and causes, and also some solutions to this problem. So we'll see you guys right after the break. So, welcome back from the break. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing our, message from our sponsors. Back to the very sad topic that we're on today. Mental health. That's what I kind of wanted to start this segment off with, because it is seen as a, quote, taboo in Japan. There's little understanding of these types of things, and the mental health, the healthcare, it's really bad. There's no psychiatrist, and anybody can just, kind of become a counselor to talk to people, and they don't really know how the human brain works and how to diagnose people, and what they don't know the field, So it's really leads to a shortage of, people having someone to talk to, because their parents aren't going to listen because they don't believe in depression. And now they don't even have a psychiatrist they can go to, or a professional. There's no professional to talk to, because, the healthcare is just lacking in that department in Japan. You know what I mean? So that's probably the last and final, cause of this problem, that compiled on top of everything, all these issues that they go through. And then they can't even get trained professionals to even have the opportunity to open up to, So it's just nowhere for these people to run, it's nowhere for these people to run, and they have to do something with how they feel, because I can only imagine how terrible of a feeling it must be to just you have problems and you just can't get the help for it, So, but what can be done? So, there actually have been some things done. In the BBC article, there was a young lady, and she went to Tokyo, and she was handing out questionnaires and, just talking to people. Her name is, I really don't know how to pronounce her last name, but I'm going to try. Her name is Eriko Kobayashi, and she struggled with mental health in the past herself, and she was going through poverty, the financial problems. She was going through poverty pre-COVID, and she kind of got her money right. She got back on her feet, and then COVID hit. So she started having those same mental health problems, of feeling like she's going to go back into poverty and, have debt and all that type of stuff. So she actually, went out back to Japan, following her getting over her mental health hump, because she received the help that she needed, And she tried to give people questionnaires and ask people how they're feeling. She went out and simply just asked people how they're feeling. she did a lot of help in the community for those people to, just to spread some awareness about suicide prevention, because there's little to none in Japan. There's little to none. And there was also an article stating that people tried to bring in some tax revenue to start some suicide prevention programs in my non-scholarly article. And this actually was not done because people rebelled it. People did not agree with, paying money to start up these types of programs. The people of Japan didn't like this idea at all, and it's just crazy to me that they don't see the problem, but it all stems back to the culture. And I feel like, another thing that can be done for this is, you don't change the culture, but you just have to allow people to feel. You have to allow people to feel, and that's what would really have to change. You would have to allow people to feel in Japan, people to express their emotions and have their humanly feelings, because we're all human. That's all we are. We're just human, and you throw in maybe some more specialists in there, maybe some more psychiatrists. You throw in that side of, the medical field for these people who need it so desperately. And, maybe we would definitely see, an uprise, and, well, not an uprise, the numbers would go down if we did some of these things, and just went about the suicide prevention in a more professional way, which is what they're trying to do. But, it's just the same old rebel, from these people who are stuck in their ways, But, I feel like that's what needs to be done. People need to do what they can to save their fellow peers, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you guys for tuning in to another podcast. We really appreciate you guys' support, and thank you to all the sponsors of this video, and hope you guys all have a wonderful day. This is Ian Davis signing out of the podcast, and I hope you guys have a good afternoon, America.